Admiral Vextar stood on the command bridge of his flagship, the Stellar Dominance. The ship was a monster of metal and energy, stretching over 4 kilometers from front to back. Its hull was made from materials that did not exist anywhere in human space, and its weapons could crack moons in half. The Admiral was proud of his fleet, and confident that these humans would surrender quickly once they saw what real power looked like. The Zephyrian Admiral was not like humans in appearance. His skin was pale blue and covered in small scales that caught the light. His eyes were large and completely black, and his movements were smooth and calculated. He had been fighting wars across the galaxy for over 200 years, and he had never lost a battle. Today would be no different. Commander Zixalon moved the fleet toward the human outer colonies, he ordered. We will show these primitives what happens when they refuse to listen to reason. The Zephyrian fleet began moving through space with grace that seemed impossible for such large ships. They used technology that bent gravity to their will, allowing them to travel faster than human ships while using much less energy. Their hulls glowed with power fields that could stop almost any attack. Back on Earth, alarms were ringing in every military command center on the planet. Admiral Patricia Cole had been in charge of Earth's Stellar Defense Force for 10 years, but she had never faced anything like this. The alien ships near Jupiter were larger and more powerful than anything humanity had ever built. She sat in the war room deep beneath the capital city, surrounded by screens showing the positions of every human ship in space. President Nathan Brooks was there too, along with dozens of military leaders and scientists. Everyone was trying to figure out how to respond to the alien threat. Admiral Cole, what are our options? President Brooks asked. He was a good leader who had guided humanity through many difficult times, but this was beyond anything he had ever imagined. Patricia looked at the data on her screens. Earth had about 50 warships spread across human space, but most of them were designed for fighting pirates and raiders, not alien superships. The largest human vessel was only 800 meters long, less than 1/4 the size of the smallest alien ship. Mr. President, our conventional forces would not last 5 minutes against those ships, she said honestly. Their technology is so far ahead of ours that our weapons might not even damage their hulls. Secretary of Defense Helen Martinez leaned forward in her chair. Then we have to consider surrender. If we cannot win, we should try to save as many lives as possible. President Brooks shook his head. Surrender is not an option. If we give up our colonies now, what happens when they decide Earth itself is too dangerous to allow? These aliens might decide that humans should not exist at all. While the leaders on Earth debated, Captain Jake Morrison and his crew continued to watch the alien fleet from their hiding spot near Saturn's rings. Dr. Lisa Grant had been studying the enemy ships for hours, and she was starting to see patterns in their design and behavior. Captain, I think I've found something important, she said, calling Jake over to her station. Look at these energy readings from their weapons. Jake studied the data carefully. What am I looking for, Lisa? Their main guns are incredibly powerful, but look at the charge time. She pointed to a series of numbers on her screen. It takes almost 30 seconds for their weapons to build up enough energy for a full power shot. That's a long time in a space battle. Commander Ryan Hayes overheard their conversation. 30 seconds? Our plasma cannons can fire every 2 seconds. That's not all, Dr. Grant continued. Watch their movement patterns. They fly in perfect formation, never breaking ranks, never changing course quickly. It's like they've never had to fight an enemy that could move fast or think quickly. Amy Foster's communication station suddenly came alive with signals. Captain, I'm intercepting alien transmissions. Their translation is getting better. The bridge listened as alien voices filled the air, speaking in their own language but translated by the ship's computer. What they heard was both frightening and revealing. Admiral, the human colonies around Saturn show no signs of evacuation, one voice reported. Then we will give them a demonstration they cannot ignore, Admiral Vextar replied. Target the mining station on the small moon. Use minimum power. We want to scare them, not waste energy. Jake felt his blood turn cold. There were 300 people working on that mining station, including families with children. Amy, try to contact the mining station immediately. But before the warning could be sent, space near Saturn lit up with blinding light. The lead Zephyrian ship fired a single beam of energy that crossed the distance to the mining station in seconds. When the light faded, the station and the small moon it had been built on were simply gone. Not destroyed, not broken apart, just gone as if they had never existed. The alien weapon had turned matter into pure energy, leaving behind only empty space and the shocked silence of the Manhattan's crew. 300 people, Dr. Grant whispered, tears forming in her eyes. Jake clenched his fists so hard his knuckles turned white. These aliens had just murdered 300 innocent people to make a point. They had families, dreams, hopes for the future, and now they were nothing but scattered atoms floating in space. Admiral Vextar's voice came through the communication system again, broadcasting to all human ships in the area. That mining station held 300 of your people. They died in less than a second, completely without pain. This is what happens to those who defy the Zephyrian Empire. Your leaders on Earth now have 60 hours to surrender completely. If they do not, we will destroy every human colony in this system, then move on to the next. We will continue until your species learns to obey. The transmission ended, leaving the Manhattan in shocked silence. Jake looked around at his crew and saw the same mix of fear and anger in their eyes that he felt in his heart. Back on Earth, the news of the mining station's destruction spread quickly. President Brooks watched the recording sent by Captain Morrison's ship, seeing 300 human lives ended in an instant by alien weapons. The reality of what humanity was facing became clear to everyone. They're not just threatening us, Admiral Cole said quietly. They're showing us that they can kill anyone, anywhere, at any time. Helen Martinez spoke up again. Mr. President, we have to consider that these aliens might be right about our technology being too weak. Maybe surrender is the only way to save the rest of humanity. But President Brooks was thinking about something else. For months, there had been rumors about a secret military project, something so classified that even he had not been fully briefed on it. Admiral Cole had hinted at special preparations, but she had never given him details. Patricia, he said slowly, is there anything you haven't told me about our military capabilities? Admiral Cole looked around the room at all the other officials and scientists. Mr. President, there are some projects that require the highest levels of security clearance. President Brooks understood. Everyone except Admiral Cole, please leave the room immediately. When they were alone, Admiral Cole activated a special security system that would prevent any recording or listening devices from working. What she was about to reveal had been kept secret for 15 years. Mr. President, in 2372, we made peaceful contact with an alien species called the Altarians. They were friendly and shared some of their technology with us. That contact made us realize that other species in the galaxy might not be so friendly. Go on, President Brooks said. We started a program called Shadow Fleet. For 15 years, we have been building warships designed specifically to fight alien threats. These ships use technology we learned from the Altarians, combined with human engineering and tactical thinking. President Brooks felt hope beginning to grow in his chest. How many ships? 12 vessels, Mr. President. Each one built in secret shipyards beyond the edge of our solar system. They are commanded by Admiral Ben Carter, and they are unlike any ships humanity has ever built before. Are they powerful enough to fight the Zephyrians? Admiral Cole smiled for the first time since the crisis began. Mr. President, I believe they are going to give these aliens the biggest surprise of their lives. President Nathan Brooks felt as if the weight of the entire human race was pressing down on his shoulders. The secret Admiral Cole had just revealed was almost too much to believe. For 15 years, humanity had been preparing for exactly this kind of threat, and he had known nothing about it. Tell me everything about Shadow Fleet, he said, leaning forward in his chair. Admiral Cole activated a hidden screen that rose from the table between them. Images appeared showing ships that looked nothing like the exploration vessels humans were used to seeing. These were vessels built for war, with sharp angles, heavy armor, and weapon systems that looked powerful and deadly. After we made contact with the Altarians in 2372, they warned us that the galaxy contained many aggressive species, Admiral Cole began. They shared some of their technology with us, but more importantly, they taught us that sometimes peaceful species need to be ready for war. The images on the screen showed construction sites hidden in the outer darkness beyond Pluto. Massive shipyards had been built in secret, powered by fusion reactors and staffed by thousands of workers who had sworn to keep the project completely secret. The Shadow Fleet consists of 12 warships, Admiral Cole continued. Each one is over 2 kilometers long and armed with weapons that combine Altarian technology with human innovation. But the real advantage is not just the technology, It's the way humans think about war. President Brooks studied the images carefully. The shadow ships looked sleek and dangerous, but they were much smaller than the Zephyrian vessels. Are they powerful enough to fight ships that are twice their size? Mr. President, size is not everything in space combat, Admiral Cole replied. The Zephyrians build their ships to look impressive and scary. Our ships are built to win battles. There's a big difference between those two things. She changed the images to show the internal systems of the human warships. Our vessels can change direction quickly, accelerate faster than anything the aliens have seen, and their weapons are designed for rapid fire rather than single devastating shots. What about their commander? Can he handle a situation like this? Admiral Cole smiled with genuine confidence. Admiral Ben Carter is the finest military mind humanity has ever produced. He spent 10 years studying every alien species we know about, learning their tactics and psychology. He has been preparing for this fight longer than anyone. Meanwhile, in the hidden command center of the UES Retribution, Admiral Carter was indeed preparing for the battle that would decide humanity's future. He was a man in his 50s with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. He had spent his entire adult life in the military, and the last 15 years preparing for exactly this moment. The Retribution was his flagship, and it represented everything humanity had learned about building warships. Unlike the exploration vessels that most humans knew about, this ship had no luxury quarters, no science labs, and no facilities for long, peaceful voyages. Every system on the ship was designed for one purpose: destroying enemy vessels as efficiently as possible. Captain Stevens, what is the status of our fleet? He asked his second-in-command. Captain Danny Stevens was a younger man who had trained under Admiral Carter for 5 years. All 12 ships are in position and ready for battle, Admiral. The crews have been running combat drills for months. They are as ready as they can be. Admiral Carter looked at the tactical display showing the positions of both the Zephyrian fleet and his own hidden ships. The aliens were moving slowly through human space, confident and careless. They had no idea that humanity possessed any real military power. Have our intelligence reports given us any useful information about Zephyrian tactics? He asked. Captain Stevens pulled up files that had been gathered from intercepted alien communications and observations by ships like the Manhattan. The reports suggest they rely heavily on intimidation and overwhelming firepower. They seem to expect their enemies to surrender quickly, and they have very rigid command structures. Rigid command structures can be a weakness, Admiral Carter observed. If we can disrupt their leadership or create situations they haven't planned for, they might not be able to adapt quickly. Back on the Manhattan, Captain Jake Morrison and his crew were continuing to gather intelligence on the alien fleet. Dr. Lisa Grant had been studying their ships for hours, and her analysis was becoming more detailed and promising. Captain, I think I've figured out something important about their shield technology, she announced. Jake hurried over to her station, where she was displaying energy readings from the Zephyrian ships. What have you found, Lisa? Their shields are incredibly powerful, but they work differently than ours, she explained. Our shields stop energy weapons and physical projectiles about equally well, but their shields are specifically designed to stop energy attacks. I think they might be much weaker against simple kinetic weapons. Commander Ryan Hayes looked up from his own console. Kinetic weapons? You mean just shooting solid objects at high speed? Exactly, Dr. Grant replied. Their shields bend energy around their ships, but a chunk of metal moving at high speed might go right through them. It's like they've never fought an enemy that used primitive projectile weapons. Amy Foster had been monitoring alien communications and human military channels. Captain, I'm receiving coded transmissions from Earth Command. They're telling all exploration ships to move to safe positions immediately. Jake felt his pulse quicken. Earth Command would only give those orders if they were planning some kind of military action. Amy, try to find out what Earth is planning, but be careful. We don't want the aliens to detect our transmissions. Several hours later, Amy had managed to decode some of the military communications. What she found made everyone on the bridge hold their breath. Captain, Earth has a secret military fleet, she whispered. 12 warships called Shadow Fleet. They're moving into position to fight the aliens. Jake felt hope and fear fighting in his chest. Hope because humanity was not as helpless as it seemed, and fear because 12 ships still seemed like very few compared to the massive alien fleet. Dr. Grant was running calculations on her computer. Captain, If these shadow ships use kinetic weapons like I think they should, they might actually have a chance. The aliens' shields are designed to stop the wrong kind of attacks. Commander Hayes was checking his own weapon systems. The aliens probably think all human weapons are as weak as the ones on exploration ships like ours. They have no idea what our real military might be capable of. In the Zephyrian fleet, Admiral Vextar was growing impatient with what he saw as human stalling tactics. His ships had destroyed the mining station as a demonstration, but the humans still had not surrendered. This was taking longer than he had expected. "Commander Zixalan, are the humans showing any signs of preparing to surrender?" he asked. "No, Admiral. Their ships are moving around more than usual, but we see no signs of evacuation from their colonies." Admiral Vextar was annoyed but not worried. In his experience, primitive species sometimes needed multiple demonstrations before they understood their situation. "Very well. We will move closer to their home world and prepare for a larger demonstration. Perhaps destroying an entire colony will make them more reasonable." What the Zephyrian admiral did not know was that human ships were indeed moving, but not to run away. Shadow Fleet was positioning itself for a coordinated attack that would come from multiple directions at once. Admiral Carter had studied the alien formations and found the perfect moment to strike. "All ships, this is Admiral Carter," came the coded transmission to Shadow Fleet. "The enemy is moving exactly as we predicted. In 18 hours, we will show them what happens when they threaten humanity's home." The next few hours would determine whether humans would remain free to explore the galaxy, or whether they would become prisoners of an alien empire that saw them as nothing more than pests to be controlled. The 72-hour deadline was approaching fast, and tension filled every human ship and colony in the solar system. Admiral Vextar had moved his fleet closer to Earth, positioning the massive Zephyrian vessels where they could be seen by anyone with a telescope. The alien ships hung in space like dark omens, their hulls gleaming with energy fields that made them look like floating fortresses. On Earth, President Brooks was preparing to broadcast humanity's response to the alien ultimatum. He had decided to reject the Zephyrian demands completely, knowing that Admiral Carter's Shadow Fleet was humanity's only real hope for survival. In the hidden war room, Admiral Cole was coordinating with Shadow Fleet Command. The 12 secret warships had spent the past day moving into attack positions around the solar system, staying hidden behind asteroids and using stealth technology that even the Zephyrians could not detect. Admiral Carter reports that all Shadow Fleet vessels are in position, she told President Brooks. "The moment you finish your broadcast, they will begin their attack." President Brooks nodded grimly. He was about to gamble the future of the entire human race on ships that most people did not even know existed. "Patricia, are you certain these ships can win against such overwhelming odds?" "Mr. President, the Zephyrians have made a critical mistake," Admiral Cole replied. "They think they understand human technology and capabilities, but they have only seen our exploration vessels. They have no idea what we can do when we build ships specifically for war." Meanwhile, Captain Jake Morrison and his crew aboard the Manhattan had positioned themselves where they could observe both the alien fleet and the space, where they hoped Shadow Fleet would appear. Dr. Lisa Grant was still analyzing Zephyrian technology, finding more weaknesses with each passing hour. "Captain, I've discovered something else," she announced excitedly. "Their ships generate enormous amounts of heat when they charge their main weapons. If someone could target their heat exhaust ports during the charging cycle, it might cause catastrophic system failures." Commander Ryan Hayes looked at the data she was showing. "Lisa, you're talking about hitting targets that are only a few meters wide on ships that are several kilometers long. The accuracy required would be incredible. Human pilots might be able to do it," Dr. Grant replied. "Everything I've seen suggests that the Zephyrians rely on automated systems for most of their targeting. They might not be as skilled at precise flying as humans are." Amy Foster suddenly looked up from her communications console. "Captain, President Brooks is about to make his broadcast to the alien fleet. This is it." The main screen on the Manhattan's bridge switched to show President Brooks sitting behind his desk in the presidential office. He looked calm and determined, but Jake could see the weight of responsibility in his eyes. "Admiral Vextar and the Zephyrian Empire," President Brooks began, speaking directly to the aliens who were listening. "You have given humanity an ultimatum. Surrender our colonies and our freedom or face destruction. You have murdered 300 innocent people to demonstrate your power. I am here to give you our response." Humanity will never surrender to threats and intimidation. We will never give up our right to explore the galaxy and build homes among the stars. We will never bow down to bullies, no matter how big their ships or how advanced their technology. Admiral Vextar, listening to the broadcast from his flagship, felt a mixture of surprise and anger. These primitive humans were actually refusing to surrender, even after he had shown them what his weapons could do. Furthermore, President Brooks continued, "Let me make something clear to you and any other species that might be watching. Humanity seeks peace with all civilized beings, but we will defend ourselves against any aggressor. You have seen our exploration vessels and our peaceful colonies, but you have not seen what humans are truly capable of when our survival is threatened. Your ultimatum expires in 1 hour. When it does, you will learn that you have made a terrible mistake in underestimating the human species." The broadcast ended, leaving the Zephyrian admiral confused and angry. How could these primitives still be defying him after seeing the power of his fleet? Their largest ships were tiny compared to his vessels, and their weapons were centuries behind Zephyrian technology. "Commander Zixalon, prepare the fleet for orbital bombardment of the human homeworld," he ordered. "These creatures are too stupid to surrender, so we will teach them the price of defying the Zephyrian Empire." But as the alien ships began moving into bombardment formation, space around them started to shimmer and distort. Admiral Vextar looked at his sensors with growing confusion, as energy signatures appeared from seemingly empty space. "Admiral, we are detecting massive power sources all around our fleet," Commander Zixalon reported with alarm in his voice. 12 large vessels are decloaking simultaneously. On the bridge of the UES Retribution, Admiral Carter smiled as his ship's stealth systems shut down and the vessel became visible to enemy sensors. All around the Zephyrian fleet, 11 other human warships were also decloaking, appearing from positions that allowed them to attack from multiple directions at once. "This is Admiral Carter of the United Earth Shadow Fleet," he broadcast on all frequencies. "Unknown alien vessels, you are in human space without permission. You have committed acts of war against peaceful civilians. You have threatened our homeworld and our people." The human shadow ships were unlike anything the Zephyrians had ever seen. Where alien vessels were built to look impressive and intimidating, human warships were built for efficiency and lethality. They were sleek and angular, with weapon ports that were already glowing with energy. "You wanted to see what humans are capable of when threatened," Admiral Carter continued. "Today, you will learn that there is a big difference between our exploration vessels and our warships. Today, you will discover that humanity does not surrender to anyone." Admiral Vextar stared at the tactical display showing the positions of the human ships. They had appeared so suddenly and from so many directions that his fleet was completely surrounded. But even as shock filled his mind, his arrogance reasserted itself. "Impossible," he said to his crew. "These human ships are still smaller than ours. Their technology is still primitive. 12 vessels cannot defeat the might of the Zephyrian First Fleet." But Commander Zixalon was studying the energy readings from the human ships, and what he saw worried him greatly. "Admiral, these human vessels are generating power levels far beyond what we expected. Their weapon signatures are completely different from the human ships we have observed before." Captain Susan Wright, commanding the UES Vengeance, was watching the alien fleet with the cold eyes of a predator. She had trained for this moment for 10 years, learning everything there was to know about space combat and alien psychology. The Zephyrians were about to learn that human determination and ingenuity could overcome raw technological superiority. "All Shadow Fleet vessels. This is Admiral Carter," came the order they had all been waiting for. "The enemy has had their chance for peace. They chose war instead. Show them what human warships can do." Dr. Grant, still watching from the Manhattan, saw the first human ship accelerate toward the alien fleet. "Captain, they're moving so fast. Look at that acceleration rate." The Shadow Fleet vessels demonstrated capabilities that shocked the Zephyrians. Where alien ships moved with stately grace, human warships darted through space with the speed and agility of fighters. Their engines produced acceleration rates that seemed impossible for ships of their size. Admiral Vextar realized that he had made a serious error in judgment. These were not the weak exploration vessels he had been expecting to fight. These were warships built by a species that apparently understood combat far better than he had given them credit for. "All ships, open fire," he ordered. "Destroy these human vessels immediately." But as his weapons began charging up, Admiral Carter's voice came across all communication channels one more time. You wanted to see our true capabilities. You wanted to test human resolve. Now you will learn why no species in this galaxy should ever threaten our home. The battle began with a thunderous exchange of fire that lit up space around Jupiter. The Zephyrian ships opened up with their massive quantum disruptor cannons, sending beams of energy that could vaporize mountains. But the human shadow ships were no longer where the aliens expected them to be. Admiral Carter had studied Zephyrian tactics for years, and he knew exactly how they would respond to a threat. The aliens would try to use their superior firepower to destroy enemies quickly, but their weapons required time to charge and were designed for hitting large, slow-moving targets. The UES Retribution dove beneath the alien formation, accelerating at rates that made the Zephyrian crews gasp in shock. Human engineering had created ships that could change direction and speed far faster than anything the aliens had ever encountered. Where Zephyrian vessels moved like stately battleships, human warships moved like deadly fighters. Target their lead ship, Admiral Carter ordered. All weapons, full power. The Retribution's kinetic cannons opened fire, launching tungsten rods at incredible speeds toward the Zephyrian flagship. Dr. Grant's analysis had been correct. The alien energy shields designed to deflect energy weapons were almost useless against simple chunks of metal moving at relativistic speeds. Admiral Vextar watched in horror as the metal projectiles punched through his ship's shields, as if they were not there at all. The tungsten rods tore through the Stellar Dominance's hull, causing explosions and system failures throughout the massive vessel. Impossible, he gasped. Their primitive kinetic weapons should not be able to penetrate our shields. Admiral, we are taking heavy damage, Commander Zixlon reported. Our shields are not stopping their projectiles. These humans are using weapons we did not expect. Meanwhile, Captain Susan Wright in the UES Vengeance was demonstrating another human innovation. Her ship's AI system was analyzing Zephyrian movement patterns in real time, predicting where the alien ships would be seconds before they got there. Human computers designed for rapid tactical analysis were running circles around alien targeting systems. Fire pattern Delta, she ordered, and her ship's plasma cannons sent a stream of superheated gas toward a Zephyrian cruiser. The alien ship tried to dodge, but the human AI had predicted its movement perfectly. The plasma struck the cruiser's hull, melting through armor that had been designed to stop energy weapons of much lower intensity. Captain Danny Foster in the UES Thunder was showing the aliens what human creativity could accomplish. His ship used its gravity drives not just for movement, but as weapons. By creating gravitational fields and then suddenly shutting them off, he was causing the alien ships to experience forces that their inertial systems could not compensate for. Their ships are too big and rely too heavily on automated systems, he told his crew as he watched a Zephyrian destroyer spinning out of control. They cannot adapt to tactics they have never seen before. The Zephyrians were discovering that their rigid military hierarchy was a serious weakness in combat. Lower-ranking officers had been trained to follow orders exactly, not to think independently or adapt to unexpected situations. When human tactics proved completely different from anything in their battle manuals, many alien crews simply did not know how to respond. Dr. Grant, watching the battle from the Manhattan, was amazed by what she was seeing. Captain, look at how the human ships are coordinating with each other. Each one is covering the others while they attack from different angles. Captain Jake Morrison nodded as he watched the tactical display. The aliens are fighting like 12 separate ships, but our people are fighting like one organism with 12 parts. Commander Ryan Hayes was analyzing the alien response to human attacks. Captain, the Zephyrians are trying to use the same tactics against every human ship. They are not adapting to the different strategies each of our captains is using. This observation was proving deadly for the alien fleet. Each Shadow Fleet captain had developed their own fighting style during years of training, and the Zephyrians could not adjust their responses fast enough to deal with 12 different tactical approaches simultaneously. Captain Lisa Parker, in the UES, Fury was using her ship's superior maneuverability to stay close to the alien vessels, where their large weapons could not target her effectively. Her smaller plasma cannons were designed for rapid fire, and she was hitting the Zephyrian ships hundreds of times while they struggled to get their massive guns aimed at her fast-moving vessel. The alien crew of the cruiser Voids Edge found themselves under constant attack from a human ship that seemed to be everywhere at once. Every time they thought they had the human vessel targeted, it would dart away and attack from a completely different angle. Our targeting computers cannot keep up with their acceleration changes, the alien weapons officer reported to his captain. They are moving too quickly and too unpredictably. Admiral Vextar was beginning to understand that he had made a catastrophic error in judgment. These humans were not the primitive species he had expected to face. Their technology was different from Zephyrian systems, but it was not inferior. In many ways, it was superior for actual combat. All ships focus fire on single targets, he ordered desperately. Use concentrated attacks to overwhelm their defenses. But the human ships were not cooperating with alien battle plans. As soon as the Zephyrians began concentrating their fire on one Shadow Fleet vessel, the other 11 would increase their attacks, forcing the aliens to spread their attention again. Admiral Carter was conducting the battle like a master musician conducting an orchestra. Each of his ships had a role to play, and he coordinated their movements to create maximum pressure on the enemy while minimizing their own risks. Captain Wright, target the damaged cruiser. Captain Foster, provide covering fire. Captain Parker, continue your harassment of the flagship, he ordered, his calm voice carrying across the communication channels. The UES Vengeance responded by launching a full spread of kinetic projectiles at the already damaged Zephyrian cruiser. The tungsten rod struck the alien vessel in precisely the locations where Dr. Grant's analysis had suggested the hull would be weakest. The Void's edge came apart in a spectacular explosion, its hull splitting open and spilling atmosphere and debris into space. It was the first Zephyrian ship to be completely destroyed, and the sight of it sent shock waves through the alien fleet. One of our cruisers has been destroyed, Commander Zixalon reported to Admiral Vextar, his voice filled with disbelief. The humans have actually destroyed one of our ships. Admiral Vextar stared at the wreckage floating in space. In over 200 years of commanding Zephyrian fleets, he had never lost a single vessel to an enemy attack. The idea that these primitive humans could destroy his advanced warships was almost too much for his mind to accept. But the evidence was floating right in front of him, and more human attacks were coming every second. The Shadow Fleet was pressing their advantage, using tactics and technologies that the Zephyrian Empire had never encountered before. The battle was far from over, but already it was clear that this would not be the easy victory Admiral Vextar had expected. The destruction of the Void's edge sent shockwaves through the Zephyrian fleet that went far beyond the physical explosion. For the first time in their military history, they were facing an enemy that could not only resist their attacks but actually destroy their ships. The psychological impact was devastating. Admiral Carter watched the alien fleet's formation begin to waver as individual ships started making uncoordinated movements. Their command structure is breaking down, he observed to his tactical officer. Press the attack while they're confused. The Shadow Fleet responded with increased aggression, each human ship exploiting the growing disorganization in the alien ranks. Captain Susan Wright in the UES Vengeance identified another weakness in the Zephyrian defenses and moved to exploit it immediately. Their shield generators are located on the outer hull, she reported to the fleet. If we can hit them with precision strikes, we can leave entire sections of their ships completely defenseless. Her ship's advanced targeting systems, guided by AI that could process battlefield information faster than any organic brain, locked onto the shield generators of the Zephyrian destroyer Dark Nebula. A series of perfectly placed plasma cannon shots disabled 3 of the alien ship's primary shield nodes. Without shield protection, the destroyer's hull was vulnerable to follow-up attacks from other human vessels. Captain Danny Foster in the UES Thunder coordinated with the Vengeance, using his gravity weapons to hold the alien ship in place while kinetic projectiles tore through its unprotected armor. Dr. Grant, still monitoring the battle from the Manhattan, was amazed by the level of coordination between the human ships. Captain, they're sharing targeting data in real time. Each ship knows exactly what the others are doing and can coordinate attacks with precision timing. Captain Jake Morrison nodded as he watched the tactical display. The aliens seem to be fighting as individual ships, but our people are fighting as a unified force. That coordination is making all the difference. The Zephyrian fleet was indeed struggling with coordination problems. Their rigid command hierarchy meant that individual ship captains could not make independent tactical decisions without orders from Admiral Vextar. But the Admiral was overwhelmed trying to direct 12 massive ships against human opponents who seemed to be everywhere at once. Admiral, The destroyer Dark Nebula is requesting permission to break formation and pursue the human ship that damaged our shields, Commander Zixlon reported. Negative, Admiral Vextar replied. Maintain formation. Do not allow the humans to separate us. But maintaining formation was exactly the wrong tactic against enemies who were using speed and maneuverability as their primary advantages. The Zephyrian ships, locked in their rigid formations, could not respond quickly to the rapid attacks that were coming from multiple directions. Captain Lisa Parker in the UES Fury was taking full advantage of this tactical inflexibility. Her ship darted between the larger alien vessels, hitting them with rapid-fire plasma bursts before disappearing behind asteroids or using other ships as cover. Their weapons are too big to track us when we get close, she reported to Admiral Carter. I can stay within their minimum targeting range and hit them continuously. The aliens were learning that bigger weapons were not always better weapons. Their massive quantum disruptor cannons could destroy entire moons, but they could not hit small, fast-moving targets that stayed close to their own ships. It was like trying to swat flies with a sledgehammer. Admiral Vextar was growing desperate as he watched his fleet taking damage from enemies he could barely track on his sensors. All ships implement defensive pattern Omega. Focus on protecting each other rather than attacking. But defensive tactics were also playing into human strengths. The Shadow Fleet had been designed for aggressive combat, and their weapons were most effective when they could choose their targets and attack from advantageous positions. Captain Wright coordinated another combined assault, this time targeting the Zephyrian heavy cruiser Stormbringer. 3 human ships attacked simultaneously from different angles, overwhelming the alien vessel's ability to defend itself. The Stormbringer's captain tried to rotate his ship to bring its heaviest weapons to bear on the human attackers, but the vessel was too large and slow to track targets that were moving so quickly and unpredictably. Kinetic projectiles from the UES Retribution struck the cruiser's main weapon systems, while plasma fire from 2 other human ships melted through its hull armor. The alien ship was not destroyed, but it was badly damaged and effectively removed from the battle. Admiral, we have lost effective combat capability on 3 ships, Commander Zixlon reported with growing alarm. The humans are systematically targeting our most important systems. Admiral Vextar realized that his opponents were not just attacking randomly. They were using intelligence and precision to disable his ships in the most efficient way possible. This level of tactical sophistication was far beyond what he had expected from a primitive species. Meanwhile, Admiral Carter was analyzing the battle's progress and planning the next phase of his attack. The aliens are starting to group their ships more tightly together for mutual protection, he observed. That gives us an opportunity to use our most powerful weapons. The UES Thunder, under Captain Foster's command, had been holding back its most destructive capability until the right moment. The ship carried experimental gravity bombs that could create localized space distortions, but they were most effective against closely grouped targets. Captain Foster, deploy gravity bombs between the alien formation. Admiral Carter ordered. Let's see how well their ships handle sudden gravitational changes. The Thunder launched 3 small devices that positioned themselves in the center of the Zephyrian defensive formation. When they detonated, they created powerful gravitational fields that pulled the alien ships toward each other with tremendous force. The Zephyrian vessels, designed for stately movement through space, were not built to handle sudden gravitational stress. 2 of the ships collided with each other, their hulls grinding together as their crews struggled to regain control. What kind of weapon is that? Admiral Vextar demanded as he watched his ships being pulled out of formation by forces they could not resist. Admiral, our sensors indicate they are using artificial gravity fields as weapons, his science officer reported. We have never encountered this type of technology before. The collision between the 2 Zephyrian ships created chaos in their formation as other vessels tried to avoid the debris and help their damaged comrades. This confusion gave the human ships even more opportunities to attack from advantageous positions. Captain Parker's UES Fury slipped through the confusion and launched a direct assault on one of the damaged alien vessels. Her plasma cannons found weak points in the hull that had been created by the collision, and she exploited them with devastating effectiveness. The battle was turning decisively in humanity's favor, but Admiral Carter knew that wounded enemies could be the most dangerous. All ships maintain pressure but watch for desperate actions. Cornered animals often do unpredictable things. His warning proved prophetic as Admiral Vextar, seeing his fleet being systematically destroyed, made a decision that would change everything about the battle. Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his damaged flagship, watching his mighty fleet being torn apart by enemies he had dismissed as primitive just hours before. 5 of his 12 ships were either destroyed or so badly damaged they could no longer fight effectively. The humans had accomplished in one battle what no enemy had ever done to a Zephyrian fleet. "Admiral, we must consider withdrawal," Commander Zixlon urged. "Our losses are becoming catastrophic." But Admiral Vextar's pride would not allow him to retreat. In over 200 years of military service, he had never been defeated, and the idea of losing to these upstart humans was more than his ego could bear. "No," he said firmly. "We will not run from primitives. All remaining ships prepare for ramming speed. If we cannot defeat them with weapons, we will crush them with our superior mass." It was exactly the kind of desperate decision that Admiral Carter had predicted. The Zephyrian ships, each one several times larger than the human vessels, began accelerating directly toward their opponents. If they could not win through superior technology, they would try to win through sheer size and weight. "All Shadow Fleet vessels, enemy ships are moving to ramming attacks," Admiral Carter broadcast. "Use evasive maneuvers and maintain distance. Do not let them close with us." But Captain Susan Wright in the UES Vengeance saw an opportunity in the aliens' desperate tactic. "Admiral, if they're committed to ramming attacks, they cannot maneuver to avoid our weapons. They're making themselves perfect targets." She was right. The Zephyrian ships, accelerating in straight lines toward their human opponents, had given up their ability to dodge or change course quickly. They were now flying predictably, making them much easier to hit with precision weapons. The UES Vengeance opened fire with everything it had, launching kinetic projectiles and plasma bursts at the approaching alien dreadnought Cosmic Terror. The Zephyrian ship's shields had already been weakened by previous attacks, and now they failed completely under the concentrated human assault. Tungsten rods traveling at incredible speeds punched through the alien ship's hull like bullets through paper. Each impact caused explosions that ran throughout the massive vessel as systems overloaded and ammunition stores detonated. Captain Wright watched her targeting display with satisfaction as the Cosmic Terror began breaking apart under the sustained bombardment. Their ship is too big to change course now. They're committed to their attack run, which makes them sitting ducks. The alien vessel was indeed trapped by its own momentum. At the speed it was traveling, any attempt to turn or slow down would tear the ship apart from gravitational stress. Admiral Vextar had committed his ships to a tactic that would either succeed completely or fail catastrophically. Captain Danny Foster in the UES Thunder was facing a similar ramming attack from the Zephyrian cruiser Voidwalker, but instead of running away, he used his ship's superior maneuverability to stay just ahead of the alien vessel, while hitting it continuously with weapons fire. "It's like being chased by a charging bull," he told his crew. "As long as we stay in front of it and keep moving, it cannot catch us. But we can hurt it the entire time it's chasing us." The Voidwalker was taking devastating damage as it pursued the human ship. Its hull was being systematically destroyed by plasma cannon fire, and its internal systems were failing one by one. But the alien captain, following Admiral Vextar's orders, continued the hopeless pursuit. Dr. Grant, monitoring the battle from the Manhattan, was fascinated by the tactical situation that had developed. "Captain, the aliens have given up all their advantages in exchange for a tactic that plays directly to human strengths." Captain Jake Morrison nodded as he watched the display. "They're using their size as a weapon, but they've forgotten that size only matters if you can actually hit your target." The human ships were demonstrating the tactical flexibility that had made their species successful explorers and survivors. Each captain was adapting their response to the specific threat they faced, using creativity and quick thinking to turn alien advantages into disadvantages. Captain Lisa Parker in the UES Fury was being pursued by 2 Zephyrian ships at once. Instead of running in a straight line, she led them through an asteroid field where their larger size became a liability rather than an asset. The alien ships had to slow down and maneuver carefully to avoid colliding with asteroids, but Parker's smaller vessel could dart between the rocks at full speed. She used the asteroids as cover while launching attacks at her pursuers, hitting them repeatedly while staying out of their weapons range. "They're too big to fight effectively in this kind of environment," she reported to Admiral Carter. "Their ships were designed for open space combat, not for fighting in cluttered areas. Meanwhile, the flagship battle between the UES Retribution and the Stellar Dominance was reaching its climax. Admiral Vextar had committed his personal ship to a ramming attack on Admiral Carter's vessel, and both commanders knew that only one ship would survive the encounter. But Admiral Carter had no intention of engaging in a simple collision. His ship's advanced maneuvering systems allowed him to stay just out of the alien flagship's reach while concentrating all his weapons on the most vulnerable parts of the enemy vessel. "Target their engine sections," he ordered. "If we can disable their propulsion, they'll be dead in space." The Retribution's kinetic cannons launched a carefully coordinated barrage at the Stellar Dominance's engine assembly. The tungsten rod struck with precise timing, causing cascade failures throughout the alien ship's power systems. Admiral Vextar felt his flagship shudder as explosions ran through the engine compartments. "Engineering report," he demanded. "Admiral, we have lost primary propulsion," came the reply. "We are operating on emergency power only." Without its engines, the massive Zephyrian flagship was indeed dead in space. It could no longer maneuver or maintain pursuit of the human vessels. Admiral Vextar found himself in the humiliating position of commanding a powerful warship that could no longer move or fight effectively. "All ships, cease ramming attacks and return to defensive formation," he finally ordered, his pride broken by the reality of his situation. But it was too late for most of his fleet. The ramming attacks had left the Zephyrian ships scattered and vulnerable, and the human vessels were systematically finishing them off with precise weapons fire. Captain Wright's UES Vengeance delivered the final blow to the Cosmic Terror, which broke apart in a spectacular explosion that lit up the entire battlefield. Captain Foster's UES Thunder had reduced the Voidwalker to a drifting wreck that was no longer capable of fighting. One by one, the proud ships of the Zephyrian First Fleet were either destroyed or disabled by human opponents who had proven far more capable than anyone had expected. Admiral Carter surveyed the battlefield with grim satisfaction. "All Shadow Fleet vessels, report status and prepare for final assault on remaining enemy ships." The battlefield around Jupiter was filled with the wreckage of what had once been the mighty Zephyrian First Fleet. Of the 12 massive warships that had arrived to demand humanity's surrender, only 3 were still capable of fighting, and even those were badly damaged. The rest were either destroyed completely or drifting powerlessly through space. Admiral Carter looked at his tactical display with a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Satisfaction because humanity had defended itself successfully against a superior alien force, and sadness because war always meant death and destruction, even when it was necessary. "All Shadow Fleet vessels form up for final assault," he ordered. "We end this now." The 11 remaining human warships moved into attack formation around the crippled Zephyrian flagship. Admiral Vextar found himself surrounded by enemies who had proven far more capable than he had ever imagined possible. "Admiral," Commander Zixalon said quietly, "perhaps it is time to consider surrender." The words hit Admiral Vextar like physical blows. Surrender had never been part of Zephyrian military tradition. His species had conquered dozens of other civilizations through superior technology and overwhelming force. The idea that they might lose to anyone was almost impossible for him to accept, but the evidence was all around him. His fleet was destroyed, his flagship was crippled, and the human ships were closing in for what would clearly be the final phase of the battle. "Open a communication channel to the human commander," he said finally, his voice heavy with defeat. Admiral Carter received the incoming transmission and immediately recognized the voice of the alien commander who had threatened to destroy all of human civilization just days before. "Human Admiral," Vextar began, I request terms for surrender." The bridge of the UES Retribution fell silent as everyone heard the words they had hoped for, but hardly dared to expect. The alien commander who had murdered 300 innocent people was now asking for mercy from the species he had dismissed as primitive. Admiral Carter considered his response carefully. He could destroy the remaining alien ships easily, and part of him wanted revenge for the mining station that had been vaporized. But he was a military professional, not a murderer, and there was a difference between winning a war and committing genocide. "Admiral Vexitar," he replied, "you attacked our people without provocation. You murdered innocent civilians to demonstrate your power, You threatened to destroy our entire civilization. Give me one reason why I should not finish what you started." There was a long pause before the alien commander replied. When he did, his voice had lost all of its former arrogance and confidence. Because you are better than we are," Vextar said quietly. "Your species fights with honor even when facing extinction. You have shown mercy to enemies who showed none to you. Perhaps that is why you won when we expected to win easily." Admiral Carter looked around at his bridge crew, seeing the same mixture of emotions in their faces that he felt in his heart. These aliens had proven themselves to be ruthless aggressors, but they were also sentient beings who were now defeated and helpless. "Very well," he said finally. "I will accept your surrender, but under strict conditions. Your remaining ships will power down all weapons and shield systems immediately. Your crews will remain aboard your vessels until Earth Command decides what to do with you. One ship will be allowed to return to your territory to report what happened here. Make sure your government understands that humanity will defend itself against any future aggression, with even greater force." Admiral Vextar felt relief wash over him as he realized the humans were not going to simply destroy his remaining ships and crew. I accept your terms completely, and I will make certain my government knows that humans are not the primitive species we believed them to be." As the Zephyrian ships powered down their weapons, Captain Jake Morrison and his crew aboard the Manhattan finally allowed themselves to believe that the crisis was truly over. Dr. Lisa Grant was already analyzing the battle data, trying to understand exactly how humanity had achieved such a decisive victory. "Captain, the key was that we never fought the kind of battle the aliens expected," she observed. "They prepared to fight against large, slow ships with energy weapons. Instead, they faced small, fast ships with kinetic weapons and tactics they had never encountered before." Commander Ryan Hayes nodded in agreement. "They also underestimated human adaptability. Each of our captains fought differently, using their own creative approaches. The aliens could not develop countermeasures fast enough." Amy Foster was monitoring communications from Earth, where news of the victory was spreading rapidly. "Captain, President Brooks is making an announcement to all human colonies. He's telling everyone that the threat is over and that humanity's freedom has been preserved." On Earth, the celebration was beginning, but President Brooks and Admiral Cole were already thinking about the future. The existence of the Shadow Fleet was no longer secret, and humanity had proven that it could defend itself against advanced alien threats. "Patricia, this changes everything," President Brooks said as they watched recordings of the battle. "Other species across the galaxy will know that humans are not helpless explorers anymore." Admiral Cole nodded thoughtfully. "Mr. President, I think we need to expand the Shadow Fleet program. This victory will deter some potential aggressors, but it might also attract attention from even more dangerous enemies." Meanwhile, Admiral Carter was coordinating the aftermath of the battle. The single Zephyrian ship that would be allowed to return home was the light cruiser Star's End, commanded by a young officer named Subcommander Kielvan. "Subcommander," Admiral Carter addressed the alien officer, "you will carry a message back to your government. Tell them that humanity seeks peace with all civilized species, but we will respond to threats with overwhelming force. Tell them that we have the technology and the will to defend ourselves and our allies. Any species that approaches us with peaceful intentions will be welcomed. Any that come with hostile intentions will face the same fate as your fleet." Kielvan listened carefully to every word. He had seen his mighty fleet destroyed by enemies his superiors had dismissed as insignificant. The lesson would not be lost on the Zephyrian leadership. "I will deliver your message exactly as you have given it," he promised, "and I will make certain they understand that humanity is now a major power in this galaxy." As the Star's End departed for Zephyrian space, carrying word of humanity's unexpected victory, the Shadow Fleet began the process of securing the battlefield and caring for prisoners from the destroyed alien ships. Dr. Grant's analysis of the battle would lead to improvements in human ship design and tactics. Captain Morrison and the crew of the Manhattan would return to their exploration duties, but now they would do so knowing that humanity had protectors watching over them. The age of human vulnerability in space had ended. Word of the battle would spread throughout the galaxy, carried by traders and diplomats to species that had never heard of Earth before. Humanity had announced itself as a force to be respected, not conquered. New human colonies would be established under the protection of expanded Shadow Fleet patrols. Exploration ships would venture farther into space, confident that they had the backing of the most effective military force the galaxy had seen in generations. The story that had begun with alien arrogance and human fear had ended with alien defeat and human triumph. But more importantly, it had established humanity's place in the galactic community as equals to any species they might encounter among the stars. The universe was vast and full of wonders and dangers, but now humanity would face both with the confidence that came from knowing they could defend their freedom against anyone who threatened it. The great chamber of the Galactic Council stretched out like a vast cathedral, its crystalline walls reaching up into darkness. Thousands of alien beings filled the curved seats, their forms ranging from insect-like creatures with multiple limbs to towering beings made of living rock. At the center of it all stood a single human woman, looking impossibly small against the massive architecture. Ambassador Lisa Grant kept her back straight as laughter echoed through the chamber. The sound came from dozens of different species, creating a chorus of clicks, hisses, and roars that would have terrified most humans. But Lisa had been preparing for this moment for 3 years. She had learned to speak their languages, studied their cultures, and memorized every diplomatic protocol. None of that seemed to matter now. "Your species wishes to join our confederation," said Council Prime Vextar, his crystalline form shifting colors from blue to a mocking purple. His voice carried clearly through the chamber's acoustics, each word dripping with contempt. "Yet what do you bring us? What makes humanity worthy of standing among the great civilizations of the galaxy?" Lisa stepped forward, her dress uniform crisp despite the long journey from Earth. "Honored Council Prime, humanity brings innovation, adaptability, and a strong desire for peaceful cooperation. Our scientists have made remarkable advances in medicine, agriculture, and environmental restoration. Our artists create works that inspire across cultural boundaries. Our diplomats seek understanding rather than dominance." More laughter filled the chamber. A massive creature that looked like a walking mountain leaned forward in his seat. War Leader Thok's voice rumbled like grinding stone. "Medicine? We conquered death itself 2,000 years ago. Agriculture? We grow crops on dead worlds you cannot even visit. As for your art and diplomacy..." He made a sound that might have been laughter. "Pretty words from a pretty mouth, but where is your strength?" Lisa felt heat rise in her cheeks but kept her voice steady. "Strength comes in many forms, honored War Leader. We believe that..." "Belief," interrupted another voice. This came from Zeph Colonel Crix, whose insectoid form clicked with agitation. "Humans believe many things. You believe you deserve a place among us. You believe your fragile bodies and short lives have value. You believe weapons and armor make you strong, when any child of our species could tear through your finest soldiers like paper." The chamber erupted in approval. Aliens pounded their seats, clicked their claws, or made whatever sounds indicated agreement in their cultures. Lisa waited for the noise to die down, knowing that losing her temper would only prove their point. From the observation deck above, she could see Captain Jake Martinez watching with clenched fists. The sight of him reminded her that Earth's military leaders were monitoring every word of this exchange. "We do not claim to be the strongest species," Lisa said carefully. "But we offer something valuable, our perspective. Humanity has faced many challenges on our world. We have learned to work together despite our differences. We believe this experience could benefit the Confederation." Council Prime Vexitar's form shifted to a deeper purple, almost black. "Your perspective? Let me share our perspective of humanity. You are a young species that has barely left your own solar system. Your bodies are weak. No natural armor, no claws, no poison, no ability to survive in the vacuum of space. Your lifespans are pathetically short. Most of you die before you have learned anything useful. Your technology is primitive," added another council member, this one resembling a giant slug with metallic appendages. "Your fastest ships would take decades to cross distances we travel in days. Your weapons are crude chemical explosives that could not scratch our children's toys. Your shields would not stop a strong breeze." Lisa opened her mouth to respond, but Vextar was not finished. "Most importantly, you have no warrior tradition worthy of respect. You fight among yourselves over trivial matters, patches of dirt, shiny metals, abstract concepts. When faced with real threats, you surrender rather than die with honor. You negotiate rather than conquer. You show mercy to enemies who would destroy you. The chamber fell silent except for the soft humming of the translation systems. Lisa realized this was her moment to speak, perhaps her last chance to change their minds. She thought of Earth, of the blue oceans and green continents that had given birth to her species. She thought of the children who looked up at the stars and dreamed of meeting alien friends. She thought of the scientists and artists and farmers who had sent their best hopes with her to this place. You see these qualities as weaknesses, Lisa said, her voice carrying clearly in the sudden quiet. We see them as strengths. Yes, we are physically vulnerable, so we developed medicine to heal ourselves and technology to protect us. Yes, we have short lives, so we work together to accomplish more than any individual could alone. Yes, we prefer negotiation to conquest, because we have learned that cooperation builds lasting peace while domination breeds only revenge. Pretty words, rumbled War Leader Thok. But the galaxy is not a peaceful place. When the Devourers came from beyond the rim, your diplomacy would not have stopped them. When the plague ships spread death between stars, your medicine would have been useless. When the Dark Fleet swept through entire systems, your cooperation would have meant nothing. Strength stopped them. Power defeated them. The willingness to kill without mercy saved us all. Lisa felt the weight of their judgment pressing down on her. Perhaps you are right about the past, honored war leader. But what about the future? What happens when the next threat comes from within the Confederation itself? What happens when your strength turns against itself? Who will remember the value of mercy then? The question seemed to surprise them, but only for a moment. Zeph Colonel Crix rose from his seat, his multiple legs carrying him down to the chamber floor. Up close, Lisa could see that his exoskeleton was scarred from countless battles. Child, you understand nothing. The strong rule because they must. The weak serve because they cannot do otherwise. This is the natural order, tested across millions of years. Your species offers nothing but naive hopes and gentle weakness. The decision is made, announced Council Prime Vextar. His crystalline form had returned to its original blue, indicating the official nature of his words. Humanity's petition for membership in the Galactic Confederation is denied. Your species may reapply in 50 standard years, assuming you have developed something worthy of our attention by then. The gavel came down with a sound like breaking glass. Around the chamber, aliens began to file out, their conversations already moving to other matters. To them, humanity had been weighed, measured, and found wanting. The matter was closed. Lisa stood alone in the center of the great chamber as the crowds dispersed. Her hands shook slightly, but her voice was steady as she activated her communication device. Earth Control, this is Ambassador Grant. Negotiations have concluded. Recommend immediate implementation of Protocol 7. From the observation deck, Captain Jake Martinez watched her with new respect. He had expected anger or tears, but Lisa Grant looked like a woman who had just confirmed her deepest suspicions about the universe. As she walked toward the exit, her steps were firm and purposeful. In orbit above the Council world, Admiral Susan Blake received Lisa's transmission aboard her flagship. The massive woman had been expecting this outcome for months, but hearing it confirmed still sent a chill down her spine. She turned to her communications officer. Send the message to Earth Command. Full authorization. Begin Phase 1 immediately. The message traveled across space at quantum speeds, reaching Earth in minutes rather than months. In secret facilities around the planet and throughout the solar system, humans began to work with desperate purpose. They had asked for friendship and been offered contempt. They had sought cooperation and been given mockery. They had hoped for understanding and received only disdain. The aliens had made their position clear. They saw humanity as weak, pathetic, and unworthy of respect. They believed human bodies were fragile. Human minds were naive, and human hearts were too soft for the harsh realities of galactic politics. They were about to learn just how wrong they could be.